Auburn's loss to Mizzou was devastating, and unfortunately, it's way bigger than just this loss.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up. The Daryl Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, hanging out with us. Auburn loses a heartbreaker to Missouri. What does it mean? Where we go next? All that's coming up. But the way Auburn continues to lose these games, Daryl, it's devastating. It's devastating. There's no other way to put it. It's absolutely devastating because when Auburn has this lead, it's hard not to think about, oh, did they put it all together? They've been so close all season. Can they just put it together? And honestly, I think most Auburn fans would have coped with this loss better if they just went up to Missouri and got their teeth kicked in.
That's the problem. There's a carrot that's being dangled that looks like that it's winnable, that they're going to hold on, that they're going to finally find a way to win, and then your heart gets ripped out of your chest and gets trampled on. And here's what we need to understand. Here's what the Auburn fan base needs to understand. There's no sugarcoating that this is historically bad. I'm not only talking about the run of 3 or 4 years that Auburn's facing. I'm talking about epic, historically bad collapses. How many times did we talk about the percentage, whatever that win percentage is, right? Okay, that's bad enough. 97%, 98%. That's happened like 2 or 3 times in the last 2 years to Auburn. Those are heart-ripping losses that you cannot, unacceptable. They threw up a stat today that just adds to this.
Oh, no.
But Auburn was 105-1 when they were leading by more than 14 points in the second half. And now they're 105-2.
I assume the other one was Mississippi State a few years ago.
Yes.
I'm assuming. Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
And, it's funny because I've always said
that's just the thing is like, I didn't think Auburn was going to win when it was up 17-3. I was watching the game with some buddies and I'm like, are we going to find a way to lose this? Are we going to find a way to lose this? And then was there any Auburn fan that was super confident with the defense when there was a few minutes left to go and Missouri had the football? Now, granted, when Auburn got the sack, it's like, are they about to do this? Are they about to do this? And they get a big third down. Then on fourth down, if it's fourth and medium, it's just throw it to zero. Throw it to whoever is being covered by Keontae Scott at this point. And it's just, once again, we've said it over and over and over again. The lack of composure on this team, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating and it's heartbreaking. And just it falls on the head coach. Falls on the head coach at this point. You're continuing to play Payton Thorne, although I don't think Payton Thorne was like majorly the issue on Saturday, but you're continuing to play Keontae Scott. You're continuing to play edge defenders that allow you to get outside on a pretty consistent basis. If it's freshmen that you're playing and they're doing stuff like this, at least that's excusable. But you're playing these upperclassmen over and over and over again, no matter what they do on the field, whether it's good or not, and you're losing football games in the worst way possible.
Well, losing programs, when they lose games and find ways to lose, and that's what Auburn's doing. They're collapsing. I did feel confident when it was 3rd and 18 because I saw Auburn on 2 consecutive drives.
Yeah, 3rd and 18 is where it's almost like the false hope. It's like, they did it. Somebody made a play.
I saw them stop Missouri on 2 consecutive drives, and I thought they were going to do it on 3rd and 18. Yeah. And then once they made it 4th and 5. But understand that when you lose games the way Auburn's losing games, it's all 3 phases. Offensively, they're not doing enough. Defensively, they let a 95-yard drive happen on their watch to go ahead. And then special teams again, missed field goals, which ironically that field goal did not cost Auburn the game because they lost by 4. But
sure,
it is inexcusable. Like I tweeted out something early when Robert Lewis dropped the touchdown pass, and Towns Magoo missed the field goal. I'm like, look, that's not on Freeze. That's not on Payton Thorne. So just in that little sequence. But if you keep running people out there that make mistakes, now I don't think Auburn has much of a choice in the kicking game. But when you have Percy Lewis just get absolutely obliterated on two particular plays, and you finally sit him on the third possession, but then you bring him right back in on the fifth and sixth possession, what are you saying?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's where the buck does stop with the head coach, because you're not putting playmakers in position to make plays.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And the worst part about all of this is you go from just the mentality of a fan, and it's probably not, neither of these are the truth, but I think the Auburn fan emotional pendulum swung all the way from one to the other so quickly. And the truth is probably still somewhere in the middle as far as what's possible this year. But you go from, okay, if you could do it at Missouri, you could do it at Kentucky. You could do it at home against Vanderbilt. And then, whoa, Texas A&M may be a top 10 team, and they're coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Hey, you got a shot. You go from feeling that to, oh my goodness, are we going to go 3-9?
See, that's the evolution of exactly where I went. I'll own it. I'll wear it. I came on your show. I was booging. I felt very confident Auburn was going to win this game, and I felt like it was going to propel them to 3 more wins. And now, if I'm being honest, I don't see a path forward to 4 wins. And maybe I'll be wrong, because I've been so wrong about this team. Was excited before the beginning of the year, was excited after Alabama A&M. Look, I'll man up. I was wrong. I was wrong about this, being excited about what this roster was going to produce, what this coaching staff was going to do. Miss. Okay? So maybe now I'll miss the other direction, because I'm here to say I see 3 wins maybe. So maybe I'll be wrong about that, and Auburn will turn it around, but I don't see it. I need to get my head checked for thinking this team was going to find a way to win last night or yesterday, and then go on
tried
for more. I mean,
you
know what? I can get a walk on to try. I'm tired of that too. They played hard. They didn't quit. You know what? That's what you're supposed to do. You're playing college football.
You're absolutely right.
And you have NIL money. But
hey, Jarquez Hunter got over 20 touches.
He got, how about this? 21 touches, 19 carries, 19 and 2 receptions.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. But he only had 57 yards.
Oh my gosh. And you look at it like a Texas A&M team that's doing what they're able to do, and they were able to just run all over Missouri. And it's like, is the gap that big?
You know what's happening with Texas A&M right now, though? I mean, this is Texas A&M's 5 stars they're getting coached up right, and those recruiting classes from 2 or 3 years ago are coming to fruition. And what we're seeing the opposite. Some of this recruiting class that Hugh Freeze brought in last year and the year before, it's not clicking. And at some point, you got to have the tough conversation and say,
you think it's on the guys that Hugh Freeze has brought in from high school?
I think no, you're right. It's more of the portal guys. Auburn's missing a lot on guys in the portal. I just, I think there's some guys that I thought Lewis.
Yeah, but I also wonder, like, I think a lot of teams, like, I think there's a large whiff rate in the portal everywhere. I'm not going to put that solely on Auburn, because they also, they got KLS.
Yeah.
They've gotten Jalen McLeod. They've gotten Eugene Asante and Dorian Mayusi. Those guys have been solid. So I don't know. For every one of the, I think a 50% hit rate in the portal might be normal across all of college football, not just Auburn. Now, do good teams figure it out and they hit 60% or 70%? Maybe, but I don't think Auburn's uncharacteristically bad at adding portal talent.
They were last year. This year's better. There was a lot more than that. Yeah, and so it's almost like you start over again. Really, in year 2, you should have had that built. But I think maybe you can't blame this recruiting class, but you can maybe blame the coaching staff for us not seeing more of this recruiting class then.
I think if Auburn plays more of the recruiting class, they win yesterday.
That's what, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, I watched the plays Caleb Harris makes and Crawford makes and Falk makes and Riddick makes, and you're going, wow. And Simmons, that's what is so disheartening about that. There's so much encouragement things you're witnessing, and the future, you're like, oh my God, these guys are freshmen. And then your heart gets ripped out because the transfer portal can't catch a ball thrown right in his hands.
Yeah, but we can talk about future when you're getting whooped. Like, we can talk about future when the divide is so wide. Like when we went to Athens 2 weeks ago, and it's like, yeah, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But when you're in a situation, you're up multiple scores in the second half, and you've got full control over the football game, and the opposing quarterback's out for an extended period of time, and he comes back in and whoops you. The chasm's not that wide. You don't need to talk about future when you should beat Arkansas and you should beat Cal, and you did everything you possibly could. Put yourself in a situation against Oklahoma and Mizzou, and you just can't close.
Did you realize how Oklahoma and Missouri mirrored each other? I mean, like identical. When you start the fourth quarter up 11 and you're driving to put your foot on their throat and go up 17, and you can't score, and guess what you do in both games? Miss a field goal.
Oh my gosh,
it was like carbon. Right. Now the only difference was Auburn didn't come back and throw a pick six, thank God, in this game, and they held the lead a lot later. But that's exactly what
the only thing missing for like the 2024 Auburn special was a poorly timed pick. That was really the only thing we were missing. I mean, this is what I said. I said Auburn it was going to be close, or Auburn would have a lead in the fourth quarter, and they would find a way to mess it up. And I wanted to be wrong so bad. I wanted to be wrong so bad. Prediction: it happens again this year. May happen this week.
I don't think I'll pick them to win again.
I'm not picking them to win.
They've got to show.
The only game I am picking Auburn to win this year is ULM.
Yeah, and I may not even pick that one.
That's it. That's juicy. We're several weeks away from that. But what do we do now? Let's jump into that in just a moment. Right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Daryl, can you imagine hiring somebody for your company? You run a company, a very successful company. Saw a newspaper article about your company. Congratulations. That was very good stuff. You deserve it. But you use LinkedIn Jobs. I mean, LinkedIn has been a part of you building that company to where it is.
It absolutely has. Thankfully, I wish we'd have had it around. We've been in business for 50 years. I wish we'd have had it around for a lot of that. But
makes it easier.
I've really utilized it a lot the last few years and found some really good folks.
Yeah, it's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals. You can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job. I think that's the key thing. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day, especially on days like today when it may not be hard.
Bless you.
Bless you. Goodness gracious. It's tough to be an Auburn fan right now. Auburn football. Basketball's going to be really fun. Also saw Sonny DeShera, former Auburn baseball legend, got me hyped up for baseball season. Saw him yesterday. So to me, like, what do you do now? Because that's the question. What do you do now if you're Auburn football? We said this a few weeks ago. I think now, I think it's okay to push the panic button to some extent on this.
Yes.
Not in the sense of like, I am not calling for Hugh Freeze's job. Let me be very clear. Hugh Freeze is the guy. This happens next year. Let's have a really tough conversation. But it's too soon. It's too soon.
Let me push back on that a second.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
If he goes 2-10, it's not too soon to have that conversation. No Auburn coach since before we landed on the beaches of Normandy has gone 2-10, has only won 2 games. And even the worst Auburn years have won 3 games, and no one's done it 4 seasons in a row. We've had 4 losing seasons. I'm telling you, you go 2-10, you need to take a hard look. I'm just saying. And you lose to La Monroe, get blown out in Tuscaloosa, you look. You take a hard look. Yes, you do.
Yeah. All right.
Yes, you do.
For the sake of what you do the rest of the season, I mean, it's kind of like when you've got a sickness and you need to get it out of you. You need to find out what the problem is. And you've got to play these young guys. You have to. I think you pull Payton Thorne. I think you pull some of these older receivers to give as many reps as possible to these young guys. I think you have some questions on the offensive line. It's like some of you guys, like this probably isn't entirely fair. Percy Lewis, it's time. Tyler Johnson, Seth Wilfred. I don't care. Put Favor Edwin in there at this point. I don't care. Let's just see. It can't be that much worse in key situations, at least. Then on the defensive side of the ball, I actually don't think you'll see much drop off at all. I don't think you'll see much drop off at all because it's not like Keontae Scott is some elite player at this point. I think he used to be. I don't know if it was because he had, DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett next to him. I don't know. But it's like, I don't think Jay Crawford's that bad. I don't think K and Lee's that bad. So like, there's a drop off from last year's quarter to this year's, but like, I don't think it's crazy. Is DJ Durkin not using them right? I don't know. But regardless, like the piece of the puzzle there doesn't make sense anymore. And so you play all these super young, talented defensive backs that you have. You give more reps to your young linebackers. It's time to go young, Daryl. Because if you're going to choke away, fourth quarter leads, let's at least do it with freshmen and sophomores at this point.
Yeah, I understand holding on to this concept of playing veterans when you feel like the season is salvageable. Like when he went back to Thorne, it's not now. I mean, my fear is
this isn't the Titanic where the captain has to go down with the ship.
Right. But I will say this. I mean, I told you on the show last week that I didn't see this team being demoralized or quitting on the season. I am going to be very, very interested to see how they come out against Kentucky, because my fear is this was the crossroads. This was the turning point to where some players are like, well, I don't see a path forward.
I posted this in the barn yesterday, thebarnauburn.com. Sign up. First month is $1. Talked to several folks within the program yesterday. A little bit more than normal after a game. It felt different, Daryl.
Right. This feels different. That's a great point. It does.
It felt different. Losing to Cal in Arkansas was shocking. Losing to Oklahoma was heartbreaking, embarrassing. The loss against Missouri yesterday was
devastating.
Devastating.
Demoralizing. The 3 Ds. That's.
It's just.
I don't know how you come back from this one. I don't know.
It's potentially program altering.
Yes, and that's the fear, because when we talked about this before we hit record, when you've seen any programs that have been in the wilderness for 4 or 5 years that are traditionally, tradition rich, traditionally good programs, the Florida States, the Tennessees, the Texas, the Floridas, when they get in the wilderness and can't get out for 3 or 4 years, it's typically losses like this that you just see happen over and over again, or bad hires back to back. You can overcome one bad hire, aka Brian Harsin. If Freeze doesn't get it done and doesn't get this turned around, and he's not the right man, you are talking about being in the wilderness. Look how long it took Tennessee until Heupel got there. They went through Dooley and Butch Jones. We talked about Willie Taggart. We talked about Texas,
going there.
Texas, Herman and Charlie Strong, right?
Yeah.
And you can't afford 2 misses in a row. And nobody came in more hyped up than Tom Herman after what he did at Houston. And he was an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He was so
great.
You can miss on what looks like unmissable candidates.
You're right.
That's where Auburn has to be careful. That's where this could take a turn. You lose the team. You lose the season. Then what do? You start losing. Then what happens? You lose guys in the portal. Then you lose recruits in this recruiting class. It's a domino effect. People can sit there all they want and say, no, hold on to Hugh Freeze because of what kind of recruiter he is. I get that. I'm not calling for his job. But if you're hanging your hat on that to keep him, and Auburn goes 3-9 and loses 3 or 4 studs in the recruiting class, then what? Then where's his plus?
So I'm now at the point where I don't care as much about that. Can we talk about that in a second? Do you mind? I don't care as much about that anymore. And yeah, that's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, whether it's for football, basketball, baseball, any sporting event you can think of, a concert, a theater, comedy show, whatever you buy tickets for. Game Time has you covered. The silver lining in all of this, if you want to go to an Auburn game, it's probably the cheapest it's been for a home game in a long time.
They may, that old joke, break your windows, and Game Time will lay 2 tickets on your dashboard for you.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Here's $20 as well.
Yeah, the lightning specials for the Vanderbilt game could be off the chain.
They pay me if I go to this game. No, listen, they're not quite there. But it's going to be. It's gonna be cheaper for sure, and they'll also give you $20 off. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Daryl, what time is it?
Game time.
Yeah, it's game time. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Why is recruiting important? Just quick answer. It's not a trick question.
Roster construct.
Yeah, you want the more talented roster. Hugh Freeze hasn't won this year when he's had the better roster. And I don't think he had the better roster than Missouri. However, I do think it's closer than like what rankings look like, but whatever. I almost don't care anymore. Like, we all know you're a good recruiter. I need you to show me you can coach. And you can make tough decisions. Remember, I think there was this sigh of relief amongst the Auburn fan base a few weeks ago when they pulled Thorne and started Hank. Not because they thought Hank would be the savior of the program. Some did. But I think a lot of it was, he did it. He made a tough decision. And then as soon as he could, he switched back. He switched back to what he was comfortable with. And to me, that's a problem. Especially when the messaging of giving you the best chance to win. It's like, I don't know. I just have a hard time doing that. So to me, yes, there's a narrative of Auburn keeps losing, they're going to lose recruits. Sure, that's probably true. But the more important thing here is Hugh Freeze needs to prove to us, his players, himself, Daryl, that he knows how to coach at an SEC level in 2024.
Well, I mean, that's why I think you're proving my point, is that to this point, he hasn't. And all he has for the people that are in his corner and that are really backing him is they show the recruiting example. If you lose that, it does become very, very important and something we should care about, because it'll end up costing him his job.
Yep.
Period. I get it. As fans, I don't care how many 5 stars you have. If you're not, proof of concept's important. Here's the other thing. Auburn fans have very good memories, and they remember coaches that were at Auburn that won with 3-star talent, went undefeated, and won SEC titles. So you're not going to, and I get it, different era, but still, you're not going to be able, he's not going to be salvageable if the one thing that is his biggest asset is gone. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think Payton was like bad yesterday. I don't think he's why they lost. But we all know the impact a quarterback has is larger than just the box score. It's confidence, it's belief. And I think these receivers trust that there's a better chance that the ball is going to come their way if one isn't in the game.
Yeah. Well,
and I don't know. I get called this big Hank Brown truther whenever I talk about this, but there's been several players that, like, I think the players want Hank. I know a lot of the players want Hank. And I just don't know what we're doing. Like, why are we doing this at this point?
I wonder if history will repeat itself And back in 2015, Jeremy Johnson wasn't getting it done, and Gus Malzahn finally bit the bullet and started a young Sean White on the road in Lexington at Kentucky, and Auburn wins that game, and he goes on. Yeah, so
that was a Thursday night game, wasn't it?
It was. It was. Something you said just kind of became crystal clear to me when you talked about, Payton wasn't bad. He didn't lose the game. If that's what our criteria is,
come on,
for a quarterback,
can
we have a quarterback one time that just wins the game? Is there anything wrong with that? With saying not that, he didn't lose the game. Can Auburn have a quarterback?
That's what's been missing, man. And like Auburn's
go out and win the game.
Auburn's had some NFL quarterbacks, Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, where it's been like, okay, they've been solid at Auburn.
But
and obviously Bo Nix became.
They took the team on their shoulder at certain points during the season and won. Maybe,
but hold on. But the two quarterbacks in recent memory that Auburn had, in my opinion, that would go out and say, the game's on the line. You are the baddest you-know-what on this field. You don't care about anything else except your teammates and winning. Now, it's Nick Marshall and Cam Newton. And what do those two guys have in common? They took Auburn to national championship appearances. That's what Auburn has missed. That's what Auburn's missed in all of this. I don't think Jarrett Stidham had that. I don't think Jarrett Stidham had that, or Bo Nix. I don't even think Bo Nix really had it at Oregon. That where your back's against the wall and it's my time to shine. Like, I don't think those two guys had it.
I totally disagree. Stidham beat Washington, beat Georgia, beat Alabama, beat Texas A&M. 4 games I could call to mind that he went down the field. The Georgia game, he was a surgeon. The Alabama game, he ran a touchdown.
The Georgia game, he threw it 5 yards to carry on, and then carry on.
Before that, the touchdown pass to Ryan Davis, on the 2-yard line. He made plays to win you ball games, just didn't make
the Iron Bowl that year. He kept fumbling it in the red zone.
Well, he also had the go-ahead touchdown, and he's not a read option quarterback, and kept it and scored from 22 yards out. The Washington game, I get it. Boobie Whitlow scored the touchdown, but Jared Stidham took him down the field. The Texas A&M game to Seth Williams. I mean, he at least made plays.
A&M game's a great example. I forgot about the A&M game.
In some, not all, maybe a handful, but you could still go back and say Jared Stidham made plays to win you this football game.
Well, then let's just, instead of saying national championship, let's say conference championship, because then that's true still. Yeah.
And then Bo Nix against Oregon as a freshman, the LSU game. I mean, you could put your finger on a few times where they did what they needed to do to win the game for their team. And all we're talking about is we're glad that Payton Thorne didn't lose the game for them.
It's like, man, glad he didn't throw a pick. Yes.
What kind of that's the standard now. I mean, it's okay to have a quarterback that you go out and say, okay, go win it. That's what Brady Cook just did. And whatever they shot him full of at halftime, I want some because my goodness.
No kidding.
He came out and looked like he was going to win the Kentucky Derby in the second half. He was done.
I mean, you look at Brady, like if Brady Cook is on this team, Auburn has one loss.
Right. And that's the frustrating thing. As bad as Auburn's played this year, at the very least, conservatively, they should be 4-3. I'm even throwing out Cal and Arkansas because they turned the ball over. I'm just talking about the very least, bare minimum. This team was up 11.
Like what if you had a quarterback just turned it over like twice in those games?
Yeah,
like, you probably win.
Well, and that's what happens when you're losing like Auburn's losing. It's a lot of ifs and buts and what ifs. And I am so curious as to how he keeps this team and doesn't lose this how he keeps them focused and not demoralized, and how they come out against Kentucky. It is going to be
you can sell future and vision, but goodness gracious.
I think that's when you make a quarterback change. A quarterback change does inject life and hope when otherwise it looks dark and it looks absolutely gloomy. A quarterback change does revitalize you a little bit.
Why do you think he stuck with Payton this whole time?
Because that's his guy. Regardless of how he, gets after him pretty hard, he hitched his wagon to him. He was the one, as we both know, there were other quarterbacks to be gotten. He got Payton, and then there were other quarterbacks to be gotten last year, and he stuck with Payton after the other 2 or 3 fell through.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend that Riley Leonard and some other guys that we thought they were coming to Auburn and unseating Payton Thorne. So the people that say he didn't go out and try to get a better quarterback, that's not true.
Yeah.
He just didn't try hard enough. After the first two options said no, and he thought he had them.
I was very defensive of that move. I said, well, who of these options are better than Payton? And I don't know if that was the right mindset.
Well, let's remember too, year one, he had Grayson McCall, and there was a transfer credit thing too. So it could have looked a lot different. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, you're right. Anybody else lose yesterday?
Yes.
Who else lost?
I think Alabama lost to Tennessee, and my Arizona Wildcats got smoked by Colorado.
Yeah, don't care about them that much, but yes.
Well, I was just trying to throw out anything that I was watching with the vested interest.
That's good.
I'm also trying to get a little bit of. It's been a rough college. It was a rough college football Saturday for the DAP. So
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
how can people find you? Tell you how much they appreciate you.
Follow me on X, DAP6410, and boy, have they ever. Daryl DAP, Instagram. And then I wrote an article in the barn that was very difficult to write. I took a couple hours this time, Zach, to kind of compose myself before I fired it out. But it's in there. It's in the barn, auburn.com.
Sweet.
And then with you multi-times during the week, my friend.
Sweet. If you want to join my fantasy basketball league, hit me up. Hit me up on Twitter. I need a few more folks. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.